Welcome to Tiny Game Chronicles episode 28. My name is Marcus, and here with my good friend Michael. Every other week we discuss games that are quick plays, but epic journeys. It is good to see you today, Michael. I know it's a little bit later for you today. We're all over the place lately, recording. How are you, my friend?
I am well. Yes, it is 9 o'clock in the evening here for me, but I think there is a good reason. I'm totally psyched about our special guest.
Yes.
And we have none other than the real, unreal Dave Jackson.
Yes,
So
we're very excited to be joined by Dave Jackson from Tales From The Backlog podcast. It is awesome to have you here with us on the show today. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great. Thank you both for having me on. Thanks for thinking of me as a guest. I know that having guests on the show is a pretty new thing, so I appreciate that you came to me so quickly. It's an honor to be thought of that way. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, we were really excited to get into this. I think this is going to be could be a bit of a spicy discussion here today. I think this is an interesting game that we're going to be talking about. Before we get into that, though, I do have a question for you guys. How do you like your eggs? Dave, how about we start?
Well, the cheat answer is it depends on the situation, but I will go ahead and say that I do, kind of in accordance with our game today, I do love a good fried egg. Makes a lot of things better, a lot of dishes better, especially if you're making cheap, clean out the fridge type dishes. A fried egg really ties a lot of those together.
Nice. Michael.
I would say the same. And it's interesting that you asked this question. I actually only ever, by choice, have my eggs sunny side up.
Okay.
So no flipping my eggs. And no sardines with my
No
breakfast.
sardines, cigarettes, no bullets, no.
Strike one against the game today. No flipping the eggs.
Yep. I'm not a big egg guy, and maybe that colored my view of the game to begin with. Don't want to spoil my thoughts or anything.
This game didn't stand a chance for you guys.
I do. So I'm not a big egg guy, but I do enjoy dishes where the eggs are maybe more mixed in with things. I love a good breakfast burrito. Even like a good quiche. I made a quiche last year, and it was a spinach and what was it? Spinach and Gruyere quiche. It was fantastic.
Hell yeah.
Oh.
It'd be
Yeah.
funny if someone came on and was like, my favorite egg preparation is hollandaise sauce. I don't eat them any other way.
Yeah, that's right. Mayonnaise. I love mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Funny.
Okay, but before we get into our discussion on Arctic eggs today, I did want to mention our previous episode was on the game Time Flies, and we had another great guest on that with us, Eric from the Pages of Play podcast. I really enjoyed our discussion with that one, Michael.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Eric, first of all, really covers that niche, and he brought in a lot of story, right? A lot of literature into his discussion, which we really appreciated, and definitely want more of that. So I'm sure that this won't be the last time that we'll have Eric on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing I did want to mention, it's our first anniversary this month of October here, and we mentioned on the last episode that we are running a little giveaway to celebrate that first anniversary for a $25 Steam gift card. We're going to announce the winner at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. Okay.
Ooh, I hope I win.
Okay, guys, let's begin our discussion about Arctic eggs. Arctic Eggs released on May 16th, 2024 on PC. It's currently only on PC. It was developed by the Water Museum and published by Critical Reflex, kind of indie darling Critical Reflex. It is described as a sci-fi cooking game where you take up the role of a poultry peddler stuck in Antarctica and longing for a way out. You got to cook your illegal eggs for those who look hungry. The gameplay is really that cooking mechanic. Your character walks around this, I guess, post-apocalyptic community, talking with residents, cooking their food orders. Your goal is to gain an audience with an individual called the Saint of Six Stomachs, and you're kind of trying to obtain your freedom from this community. the game doesn't have an open critic score, but it was quite well received, and I think it's a bit of a real hidden gem in the indie community. It's overwhelmingly positive on Steam with more than 3,000 user reviews. So it is quite well regarded by the people who have played it. We start out each of these discussions, guys, with 3 questions. What platform did you play it on? Obviously, it's PC only, but perhaps we played it in a different way, Steam Deck or traditional PC. How long about did it take you to beat? And what are some high-level thoughts? Dave, do you want to get us started with this?
Sure. Yeah, I played this on PC with mouse and keyboard, and I want to say it took me about 2.5 hours to get through. I played in, I think, 2 play sessions. And high-level thoughts, this is an extremely weird game, but it's the type of game that I'm glad that I play because it's entirely unlike anything else I've ever played. You can tell just by looking at like screenshots of this that like this is, you see a screenshot of him holding a frying pan, cooking an egg and a cigarette, and you're like, all right, what is this? And it really like pays off on being a kind of bizarre experience. And it's a little bit frustrating, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but I do think there's like a message in here that, you know, if you read between the lines a little bit, or if you just read the dialogue, I think that you can take away some of the key ideas from the game, as well as just like a nice little 2.5 hour bizarre adventure, cooking adventure. So I think those are nice high level thoughts to start.
Michael, how about you?
Well, I actually initially thought it's going to be a kind of simple cooking simulator in a very bizarre world. But it evolved into something that is way stranger than that. So I think this is really a meditation when it comes to egg flipping, right? I think Gordon Ramsay would perhaps weep if he were to do something similar, because you really need the precision of a sushi chef, and perhaps also the patience to master this game. And I think maybe at the core, just as a top line thought, it's really finding meaning in these repetitive tasks of flipping. I think you're going to be the flipper extraordinaire. And I think the game reveals, you know, that it's perhaps there's something more behind it than just kind of meets the eye. Or does it? So I think this will be what the discussion is going to be about today. So I played it on PC. I tried on Steam Deck, but I felt more comfortable playing it on PC. Also 2.6 hours. I did not finish the game. And I played it with the controller, with perhaps, if I just listen to Dave playing with the mouse and keyboard, and looking at some reviews, I think the easier way would have been to play it with mouse and keyboard.
I would strongly recommend, sorry to interrupt, I'd strongly recommend playing with a mouse.
Yeah. With the controller, I really had my struggles. So, yeah, that was me. What about you, Marcus?
Yeah, well, I played the game entirely on my Steam Deck, and yes, struggle with the controls a little bit at times. We'll get into that probably in a little bit. Took me, again, about the same as you guys. I think it was about 2 hours and 45 minutes. I did get through the entire game. And like Dave said, this is a weird-ass game. This is, I think, easily, we talked about this a little offline, Michael, this is probably the weirdest game we've played here on Tiny Game Chronicles. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting the challenge that this game posed in terms of just the mechanical challenge, let's say, and I wasn't expecting quite the level of. And this is maybe going to sound derogatory, and maybe I intended as such. The incoherence of a lot of the interactions that I felt like I was having with the characters in the game. So that's kind of some high-level thoughts. I am looking forward to this discussion because I do think that we're going to kind of hash some stuff out. I feel like we're going to hash some stuff out about this game. But before we get into the more deeper dive discussion, I did want to give folks a brief reminder about how we talk about games on Tiny Game Chronicles. So what we do is we identify 3 things that we think stood out about the game, and we go into a deep dive discussion onto those 3 things. And then what we do almost all the time, we're going to do so here. We avoid spoilers here on Tiny Game Chronicles. And really, I guess what we're going to consider spoilers is the ending. The story is very, I think it's okay for us to kind of talk about some of those individual interactions that we may have had with some of the other, the characters in the game. I think we obviously can talk about mechanics. I think everything, kind of that end game piece, we'll leave out. So, yeah, I think that's how we're going to handle spoilers for this discussion. Is that okay?
That's good.
Okay. Okay, so let's get into our deep dive discussion on Arctic eggs. The first standout item that we wanted to discuss was this cooking mechanic, Michael. And I wanted to read something from the Steam description, which I think gives a little bit of insight into, 1, the humor of the game, which we'll probably touch on maybe in a later standout, but 2, just the mechanics itself. So from the Steam description, it reads, "Our team of culinary experts worked tirelessly to ensure that Arctic Eggs is the most realistic cooking simulator on the planet. Unfortunately, our chefs don't know how to program, so we made something like Getting Over It, but for cooking eggs." So I think that, I'm not sure, Dave, have you played Getting Over It?
I have.
Body? Yeah. I've only watched gameplay of this. I'm assuming, Michael, you haven't played Getting Over It?
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
No.
It's famously a very frustrating, challenging game to play. I don't know if you would concur, Dave.
Oh, yeah, it's extremely difficult. Yeah. The difference between that and Arctic Eggs is like you can legitimately play for like 45 minutes in Getting Over It and then fall all the way back down to the bottom of the game. So
you're like climbing a mountain or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's really hard, and you will lose a ton of progress just from like one small slip up, and you'll fall down to the bottom, and the voiceover will give you some like philosophical musing about picking yourself back up or some shit like that. Like I really like that game. It's just extremely hard. Arctic Eggs kind of has that same feeling in the cooking mechanics where it's a physics system, and all the things in your frying pan are physics objects. So you have to make sure your pan is tilted the right way. There's challenges to you have to keep everything in the pan. That's goal number 1. And then you have to constantly shake the pan to generate heat, to cook the stuff in it, and make sure that things don't slide off the edge. You have challenges later for things that need to stay upright, like a bottle of beer that cannot fall over. Because it's a physics object, it will fall over if you're too rough with shaking the pan, for example. They introduce some cockroaches that you have to cook that are trying to escape the pan. You have to keep them in. So there's a challenge to the cooking that, like the Bennett Foddy Getting Over It example, one small mess up with the mouse or with the control stick, I guess, means it's ruined. Everything falls out of the pan. The difference is in this game, you can instantly restart, drop the things back in and try again. But it is that same kind of thing where it's really hard, and it takes a very, very steady hand on the mouse or on the control stick to stay under control with keeping the things in the pan upright. And then, you got to flip stuff over and do this gentle kind of flipping motion with the mouse and, let things ride up the edge of the pan and then flip over. It's pretty involved, much more than you might guess.
It is, and I know that you had some frustrations, Michael. How about, here's your time to vent. Let's go. Let's hear it, Michael.
Yeah, so for me, I think the fact that I discovered, I think it took about an hour before I went into the settings, and I realized that you could play around with the sensitivity a little bit of the controller sticks per se. Had I known that sooner, I think it would have alleviated a lot of stress. This, what Dave was mentioning, this kind of physics-based precision cooking, where the constant pan movement. There are some glasses with ice cubes, right? That you need to balance and make sure that the ice stays in the glass. In between trying to cook and flip your eggs.
Yes.
It got
Yes, yes, you did. Yes.
It got incredibly frustrating, and very cumbersome. I felt the controls, if they're not set, if you actually have not set the sensitivity beforehand, it's incredibly cumbersome. Um, and I wasn't exactly sure what were the fundamental tension of this game. Am I really developing a meaningful cooking technique, or am I just accommodating some sort of awkward physics-based game design? It stole some of the joy that I was hoping because we are in this kind of really weird, futuristic atmosphere. It took away engaging in that atmosphere for me, if that makes sense, right? Just the game mechanics per se, because one could not continue the story. And for me that was quite frustrating. I'm a one button player.
Yes.
And this was a lot for me to handle. And I'm a patient man. However, it did get under my skin, and then not the most pleasant way. Yeah,
It's
that was
interesting
me.
you say that. This is why I recommend playing with a mouse, because a mouse just
Yeah.
gives you so much greater control over, the sensitivity, how much you're moving in one direction. For example, it would be much easier, I think, to because you have to constantly jiggle the pan to keep the heat going. It'd be much easier to do that with a mouse than a control stick. So for anyone out there who's thinking about playing it, please play with a mouse. If your computer's less than 15 years old, you can probably play this game. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, had I not spent the first hour with the controller, I think by then my leeway was kind of spent with regards to the game.
I get that.
Yeah.
Marcus, how was it for you?
Yeah, I found the difficulty setting. So there's a couple of difficulty settings, like things that you can do to make things easier. So having played it all with, control sticks on the Steam Deck, you have the option of changing the game's difficulty, and all that this does is it changes the I guess the depth of your pan.
Okay.
So
Correct.
So the hardest difficulty, there's almost no lip on the side of your frying pan, and then on easy, you're basically like frying in a wok. Like it's quite
Exactly.
high. So I switched to easy fairly early. I was like, I got to see if I can. I was actually looking for sensitivity options, which there are also. They worked okay. It had definitely helped, but I found that I struggled to, because I lowered the sensitivity of the flip. It was harder to flip everything, and it didn't quite respond in the way that I wanted it to when I wanted it to. But it did make. I think it overall made it a little bit easier. But yeah, I definitely I didn't hear until after the fact, because I was listening to trying to do a little bit more research on the game after having finished it. And you're not the first person to say that. I think this game lends itself much more. It makes it a lot more easier with keyboard and mouse, Dave. So it doesn't shock me to hear that. I wish I had realized that, maybe, because that's definitely not my preferred way to play anything. So I'm always going to gravitate towards the Steam Deck as an option. But I think it probably would have helped with that frustration. What do you guys think about? I think one of the things that was frustrating for me in that cooking mechanic was the time limits that they put on you. It was like I could probably work my way through. I think it's probably overall a good idea, but it frustrated the heck out of me. I was like, I'm getting there. I'm almost there. And then, they would add. So the cigarette was the one thing with so they would throw a cigarette in the pan, and you had to have your food cooked before that cigarette extinguished itself.
Right.
So it did put a big time limit, and that got me a few times.
I honestly, of all the times that I failed cooking, it was never because I ran out of time.
Really?
It was
Okay.
because things left the pan. So anytime I had cigarettes in the pan, it puts some more pressure on you to be a bit more active with the pan, I guess. And maybe that's why I never failed because I ran out of time. I failed because things flew out the side or something like that. So the time limits didn't bother me at all. The only challenges that I don't remember the exact number. You have to do 27 cooking orders in order to get to the end. And I want to say there's 30 to 35 people that you can serve, because I definitely did more than 27. I think I missed one person.
I think there's 34.
Okay.
I think there's 34.
I missed one. And by missed, I mean I gave up on one. And It was one with a bunch of cockroaches that you have to keep in the pan. I just got super frustrated and was like, nope, forget it. I know there's more than 27 people. Maybe I'll come back to this later. And then I didn't. So
yeah.
I don't know. All that to say, of all the challenge in the game, the time limit was not something that really fazed me. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, I think what phased me was the fact that I did, like Marcus, eventually go over to easy and then had this wok, right, rather than the pan, the normal pan as we have it. And I realized that the sides being as high as they were actually were not conducive to flipping, if that actually makes sense. So kind of going with the normal pan helped a little bit better if you were trying to do that. I mean, the other thing that really got me were the bullets.
Yeah.
Right, per se.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of things that, come into your pan. We mentioned cockroaches, cigarettes, glasses with blocks of ice. I'm not going to go through all of them, but bullets are another one of them. And again, right, because you could never really guess exactly when they would explode. Yeah. This is one of those games that really tested me and got under my skin. And I'm I'll leave it at that. It's just I was then asking myself the question, why am I doing this?
Okay, so I was going to bring this back when we talk about the world and setting.
Sure.
But I'm glad you said those exact words. Why am I doing this? Because I got into a situation with that cockroach order that I couldn't do, and I was like mad. So I was like, most of the time that I was playing this game, for any basketball fans out there, I had my tongue out like Michael Jordan in the playoffs. Like I was focused playing this game, and I got in that challenge with the cockroaches, and it was so hard. And I said out loud, what the fuck am I doing with this? And it combines, I think it combines really well with the absurdity of the world that you're in, the absurdity of the people that you talk with, and just your general situation. If you think about who your character is and what their job is and why this is their job and why does this job even exist in this world, like it all combined for me into this one really strong singular moment of absurdity where I'm like, what am I doing? What is anyone doing here? What's the, like, seriously, like a single moment of pure, like, you see the Matrix suddenly and you're like, what is any of this? And I think that this game hits this moment really, really strong. And it kind of unlocked like a thematic angle to like look at this game because it's so absurd. Everything about it is absurd, from how slippery the eggs are in the pan. Like I cook at home. I know what it's like to cook eggs in a pan. It's not like it is in this game. To like suddenly they start to build up challenge in the game, not by giving you like, they're not giving you challenges like, oh, make sure that, you're cooking 3 eggs in the pan. Make sure they don't stick together. Make sure they look pretty, like a real cooking challenge might be. It's not like Gordon Ramsay, like, make sure you don't burn the risotto or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're going to give you challenges mostly based on make sure things don't fly out of the pan. And then they introduce new things like the beer bottles that have to stay upright. They can't fall over. The cans of fish that you have to cook in order for the can to break open. And then you have to like flip the can to flip the fish out and then cook the fish. And then the ultimate one is the bullet, which is the only thing that goes in the pan that you need to get out of the pan. So it's like, I got to get the bullets out, but I can't, the eggs have to stay in the pan too. So like all of this is like building to this point where I think a lot of people will reach that moment of frustration because it's difficult. And you'll reach a moment to be like, what am I doing here? What is anyone doing here? And I think it's really, really like thematically strong while also being frustrating. I think that games can use frustration in very interesting ways to get a point across. And I think this game actually does that. I don't know if it's like super intentional in doing that, but it certainly worked that way for me.
Well, let's move on to standout item number 2, because we've already touched on it a little bit. This world and setting is very crazy, absurd, as Dave mentioned. Like, this whole situation is bizarre. So the game opens and it tells you we're in Antarctica in 2091, I think the year was. And
correct. That's how the game opens.
Yeah, and like you take control of your character. They kind of show you the mechanic. You talk to I guess it's like a guard, some sort of military dude. And then he shows you kind of work through the tutorial of how to flip that first egg and cook it. And then you're kind of led out into this, this tiny little open world. That's probably a bit of a stretch, but this kind of environment that you can wander around in and talk to these weirdos who are all just existing in this. Some military people, some other kind of, there's like android robot kind of things. There's weird like I don't know, medical,
it's like a colony.
things.
Yeah.
So like, why? How about this, Mike? I'm going to pose to you this. Why did the game choose to set this game in this place? If it like, why did they do this?
And I wish that the game provided a clear answer, but it doesn't, specifically here. But I want to pick up on that what Dave said, which I think is a little bit where this game is going. It's Dave raised the question, at least we all kind of posed ourselves the question as we are dealing with our frustration, is why we're doing this. And Antarctica is a very isolated place, right? It's not like, I don't know, no, there's like there might be some tourism there, but obviously minimal. And obviously, as this is set in the future, you're playing a character that is stripped down. When I say stripped down, he has very little, I think it's a he, could be a she, very little agency with regards to what they can do and how they can influence the environment. So the only thing that your character can do is walk and cook, right? Or walk and flip, right?
Yeah.
And it's really about how do you find purpose when your agency is removed and you become defined entirely by your ability to feed others, which is incredibly meaningful in this kind of desolated, ice cold setting, because you're, I don't know, giving people joy. So every time you're able to feed someone, I mean, they kind of are over the moon, right? You get so much appreciation for, having succeeded in your cooking attempt. And I think that is the aspect that the game wants to bring about is, how does, service feel, kind of agency removed service within social isolation. And this is an aspect that that I think that the game brings forward. There are some more points, but that's the one that I think stuck closest to me. Right? We can also talk about
the world setting, and maybe Dave, you can jump in here. How does that contribute to what Michael is saying?
Yeah, I think it's just an extension of what Michael was talking about there. Your character is reduced to your job, basically. Yep. Your job is to cook. That's it. Nobody really wants to talk to you otherwise. Like, a lot of people, even if they don't want food, there are NPCs that don't have food orders, and a lot of them will just say, like, I'm not hungry, go away. And they won't really talk to you. And so you have that on like this small scale, but setting it in Antarctica, they never say, but it really feels like you're in some kind of post-apocalyptic, survivors of an apocalypse type situation. You have like this it looks like a kind of never-ending, like, brutalist apartment complex that this whole game takes place in. But, like, you don't see activity out there. You see, like, people hanging out outside here, but you don't, I mean, there's no lights that you see in apartment buildings in the distance or anything like that. So it really gives the feeling that, like, these are the last people left, or at least that's the feeling I got. And it's not a hopeful feeling. It's just kind of like people are outside trying to dance, eating weird food, requesting that you cook their eggs with cigarettes because, like, who cares? Life is hopeless in a way, so let's anything that's going to, like, bring me a couple minutes of joy, that's worth exploring or worth striving for. That's kind of the feeling I got from the world and setting, which really ties in with what Michael was talking about. One of the only ways that I feel like that's, like, shown that people still experience joy or warmth or anything like that. They dance, they hang out, and food is the constant thing. And there a lot of stories will explore, like, the intimacy, the love, the warmth that, like, cooking for someone can bring. And you might be bringing someone by cooking up their eggs and cockroaches. You might be bringing them the only, like, 5 minutes of warmth and joy that they're going to get on that particular day. So I think it all serves to just, like, build this, like, really strange but definitely isolating type of world that they've built.
Yeah, I agree, and I think
Marcus.
it might actually be worth moving on to our standout item number 3, which is kind of like explore. I think there is some philosophy, I think, or maybe the message of this game, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I think it's worth maybe bringing a quote that repeats quite regularly. I want to say like 3, 4, maybe 5 times within the game. Is
same NPC repeated. You find her asking this question to multiple people and getting their takes on it.
Yeah. So the question is, can you fry an egg on the top of Mount Everest? And I think that I've thought about this. It's such an absurd question, and I think it, like, and you get these kind of, like, musings every time that it comes up, like, and very different takes on and different answers to the question, can you fry an egg on the top of Mount Everest? But I think my take on the inclusion of a question like this in this game is kind of what you guys have already said. Like, food is comfort, and Mount Everest is one of the, if not the most inhospitable places on the planet. Is it possible to provide comfort and in the worst of environments? And food could do that, and I think, like, that's kind of what this game might be asking, or at least that's how I've kind of come to sit with this a little bit. Is it like, can we find joy, comfort, good stuff in really shitty situations? So that's where I've landed with this game, and at least what this game is trying to say.
There's a lot of musings on, like, different subjects throughout the game. One of my only, like, real critiques of the game is that sometimes it's pretty heavy-handed in just, like, a character will tell you the artist's message. I think there's a couple screenshots I took that are just straight up, like, the writer wants to say this to the audience, and the character basically just says what the writer wants to say. It doesn't happen often, but I think it really hits you with a couple of them. There's on that subject, though, of, like, what you were talking about there, Marcus, there is a quote that one of the soldiers says where they say, "Beauty is found in the briefest of moments, not in the grasp of eternity," which is basically what you're doing throughout the game. If you think about this as a hopeless situation, like I'm kind of thinking about it as, there is no beauty long term for the people living in this world here. But there is beauty in these brief moments where you cook for people. And whether you want to extend that to the Mount Everest question or not, that's a definite thing that I think this game is about. With the Mount Everest question, curious to get your take on it, Michael. To me, it just feels like somebody exploring an absurd question with no answer and just wanting they want to get other people's takes on it. This character asks a lot of people, and she's never satisfied by the answer that they give, because whether it's like a practical answer where someone's like, well, you could cook eggs, but you'd probably have to pre-cook them, otherwise they'd freeze, and maybe you could heat them up enough to thaw them. And she's like, no, that's not what I'm asking. I want to cook them on Mount Everest. And so it's an absurd question with absurd limitations in what answer they want, and they just keep asking over and over and over again. It just serves to, I think, kind of just keep bringing this absurdity to the forefront. I don't know. Michael, what do you think?
I think you've hit it on the head. There's no way for me to describe that better, Dave. I think it's a totally absurd question, and maybe not a question that when you're chasing the answer for that, and there will be an opportunity in the game, perhaps, right, for you to see whether you can get to an answer, yes or no. ChatGPT be your friend. Even if you get the answer, it is actually not going to solve anything per se of, the status quo that these people or this culture is finding themselves in. And so for me, it's a question of, what happens when you dropped into impossible circumstances. I mean, none of the inhabitants of Antarctica seem healthy, right, per se. They all seem to be high on something, if we can put it that, right? So there's always a tube sticking out here or there. And for me, the deeper question is, what happens if our main character loses his pan and he can no longer kind of fulfill his conventional role, and for me that is the more critical aspect is how do we find meaning when we no longer have the tools that defined us. And I'll leave it at that.
There's a couple of things in the game that I think, I mean, there's one where they just tell you. They're commenting on art and art consumption and art criticism. There's one where a soldier just kind of gives a monologue about that, which is the one where I was like, this is a little heavy-handed here. But there is a lot of like reading between the lines, connecting dots like you were doing there, Michael, where like if you think about creatives, if you think about the games industry, people who may have defined themselves by the things that they make, artists in general, if they're losing their jobs for any myriad of reasons why that's happening now. If you think about yourself, if you self-identify so strongly by the thing that you make or the career path that you're in, what happens when that's gone? What is left of you after that's left? And so it kind of like, if you think about like, okay, even not maybe what if the character doesn't lose his pan? What if it's like, well, okay, I did my job. I fed 27 people. I'm going to go meet the saint of 6 stomachs. What happens after that? Like, did I fulfill my purpose? And they're just going to like toss me off the edge of this apartment complex? Like, or, is someone going to be cooking me in a pan in Arctic eggs too? Like what's going on? I think that if you think about like the identity and how stripped down your character's identity is in this game, what happens after this is over? Or is this all there is for your character now? You wander around flipping eggs and beer bottles and cigarettes until you freeze to death out in the cold, or what? Or if they run out of eggs and everyone dies, who knows?
I think that is actually the question, and that is asked, at least the question that stuck with me, right, is I don't think we get meaning through the things that we do, but we get meaning through being who we are. And maybe that is a territory that I would like to approach more, or at least give it more thought.
We get meaning. We do not, like, if you want to extend that to this game, you do not attain meaning by cooking, the act
Correct.
of cooking, but you do get meaning and fulfillment by cooking for somebody and
I
that
think
interaction.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
by sharing that with someone, any kind of interaction, sharing, that's where we derive meaning. Like as an artist,
It's connection.
Yeah.
It's all about connection. It's not about the doing, if that makes sense. Right?
Right. So like you can extend that too a little bit. Like if you're an artist, are you fulfilled by the simple act of drawing, or are you fulfilled by somebody then interpreting your drawing? Like I don't think that it works for everything, for every example. Are the three of us fulfilled just by... Would we be as fulfilled by solo podcasting about Arctic eggs, or is it more fulfilling to talk about it with two other people? Like that type of thing.
You've answered the question, Dave.
Well, I know there are a lot of people who get fulfillment just by doing the creative thing and expressing themselves and things like that. I don't want to like blanket say that nobody is being fulfilled by solo podcasting or solo video work or whatever we're doing in the game space, or written word, for example. But in this specific example, I think that the game is showing you like the beauty of this game, and there is beauty, is in these moments where you interact with people and you give them their tinned fish and their cigarettes.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it really comes to bandwidth, right? The bandwidth that everybody has as individual. And, you know, you could cook for the whole crew that was there in the game, but some people didn't want to be cooked for. And that does not mean that maybe they were not hungry, because I'm sure they're all hungry. But some people prefer not to have that exchange, not to have that connection. And that is totally okay, right?
It'd be interesting if they gave you a thing where someone was like, you know, give me 2 eggs and a glass of ice, but then just like flip it onto this thing and leave. Like,
yes.
And I'll come back
yes.
later. Like, give you some
yes.
kind of different type of interaction. There's one thing where you have to like purposely flip an egg. It's extremely hard to do. I'm kind of glad they didn't do it more, but there are other types of interaction to explore.
Yeah. Very true. Marcus, and I'm going to throw a curveball at you.
Okay.
Because we didn't speak about one thing that is actually present in 2 other games that we've played. And that is, this is another game where we have dolphins.
There are dolphins in this game, yes. Yes, I guess kind of dolphins. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, there are.
Sorry,
in a very bizarre situation. Yes, I'll leave that one for the listeners if you want to play that one, because that one was clearly the most shocking part of the whole game for me. I think I was like, "What the fuck are they doing here? What are we doing?"
That's the question.
Yeah.
Did anyone pick up the nod to mouthwashing? By the way.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Another critical reflex game. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think like just to maybe wrap up this kind of this standout. I like what you guys have kind of laid out for me here. I think, you know, the devs are doing in essence what the poultry peddler is doing. They're giving you something. They're kind of providing the player with something that they can take to develop connection and I don't know, meaning a little bit, and you can interpret that how you want. You know, some things are going to work for others. I think like some of those interactions that I had as a player with the characters that you're talking with, it was like I'm not connecting at all. Some of them were a little on the nose, like you said, Dave. Some of them made me think a little bit more, and I think that maybe that was all the goal that these devs had, is they wanted people to potentially connect and think and reflect and interpret how whatever it is that they needed or wanted to interpret from their art. So I don't know.
I think it's a commentary also on a socioeconomic reality, right? That we find ourselves in per se. No? So at another level, there's so many levels. That's why I say it's a beautifully ambiguous game, right? It could be this, and it could also be that.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's wrap up our discussion on Arctic eggs, guys. We finished these things up by asking ourselves, do we recommend the game, and if so, to whom? Dave, you want to get us started?
Sure. I recommend this game to anyone who can play with a mouse. I think that I think that this is it's a really weird game. It's an oddball game. It's absurd. It's frustrating, but you know, half of me wants to say they tell you this in the game. Half of me wants to say it feels like they're asking you to appreciate something that's a little tough to appreciate sometimes. But then half of me says that this is actually worth saying, so it's worth saying. Say it. That challenging art is worthwhile, even if everyone doesn't like it. There are going to be people who play this game and don't like what's being given to them. And the big long monologue that soldier gives is basically about how if you try to make art for everyone, you will erode down the things that make your art interesting. And Arctic Eggs is pretty unflinching in not watering it down and keeping it interesting and weird. So I think that, I mean, that's something I really value in games is, you know, every game I play doesn't have to be wholly unique, you know, but I do appreciate when people stick with their ideas and, you know, don't sand things down so they can sell, you know, 500 more copies or whatever. Or make it onto, you know, like you said, this game doesn't have an open critic score. Like if they were like, we need to make sure that we can get IGN and Game Informer and GameSpot to review this and get on Metacritic or whatever. I think this game would be worse if they pandered to mass audiences. So all that to say, if that sounds interesting, if you like to play weird art games, I think Arctic Eggs is for you, and play with a mouse.
Absolutely.
Michael?
I think I would add to what Dave just said is obviously if you like kind of, you know, physics puzzles with a control scheme, right? Obviously with the mouse, this one would be for you. If you should avoid this game if you're just a casual cooking sim fan, right? There are other games out there that you could play.
Yeah, this is not Overcooked. Yeah.
No.
This is not it.
This is not Venba.
And no, this is not Venba. And also, if you are a philosophy-minded player, I think if you like to contemplate on games and what the meanings are, I would, talking about recommendations, recommend that you actually finish this game, because the ending flips a lot of the things that you were exposed to again on its head. So I'm not going to spoil it here, but I would definitely encourage you, because it poses some new questions or some new thoughts that aren't the main part of the game. And I would say that if you have limited patience, like me, unfortunately, these last 2 weeks, then avoid this game, right? So, or buy it, and whenever you feel that you are a little bit more chill, and you can cope with failure well, then give Arctic Eggs a try, because it is a beautiful, tiny game. Marcus.
This is a really tough one for me. I can't say that I enjoyed my time playing Arctic Eggs. I found it often frustrating, and part of that again may have been, you know, the way that I chose to play it on my Steam Deck. But the further away that I've gotten from playing it, I finished it, you know, over the weekend, so about 5 days from recording. Listened to a few other conversations about the game. The more I've come to appreciate what the game is and what it's trying to do, I guess. So I think like you have to go in with the mindset that you might be frustrated at times. It may seem pretty nonsensical at times, but I think that I'm happy that this game exists, and I'm happy that, you know, there are devs doing stuff like this. It's not going to be for everyone. if what we've kind of discussed, and I think we've given you probably a pretty good flavor of what the game actually is. If that sounds interesting, then I think it's for you. But if you get easily frustrated with mechanics, if you need a more coherent story, that's not really this. So yeah, I guess that's where I kind of would land on Arctic Eggs. But I am glad I played it. So thanks for bringing this one to the show, Dave.
Oh yeah, of course. Glad I got the excuse, as we say. Glad I got the little extra push to finally play this.
Yeah. Okay, guys, so that's it for episode 28. We do have a little bit of housekeeping that we'll do to wrap things out. Of course, we would really appreciate it if you shared, liked, subscribed, and left us a 5-star review wherever you happen to be listening. And aside from that, you can follow the show on Blue Sky at Tiny Game Chronicles, and you can follow me on Blue Sky at Marcus O'Neill 79. Michael, where can people find you?
So people can find me on Blue Sky as well, under Drellesh, DRELLESH, as well as on our tiny Discord. Links in the show notes, and we look forward to seeing you there.
And Dave, do some plugs.
Yeah, you can find me in a lot of places, including Blue Sky at TFTBL Pod. That is the incorrect acronym for the name of my podcast, Tales From The Backlog. My show is kind of like this one, although it's much longer, and I do all kinds of games. So I do a non-spoiler section, and then I add on a full spoiler discussion, but there's a break, so you can jump out in any episode if you don't want to be spoiled. The show's been going for a long time. I'm coming up on game number 200 on the show. So, yeah, find me wherever you listen to podcasts. And then, again, Blue Sky, that's my kind of all-in-one, my thoughts, but also podcast stuff. Yeah, and I'm also in the Tiny Game Chronicles Discord server as well. So find me in there also.
And
Awesome.
Just a plug for Dave. Dave is definitely one of the podcasts that I religiously listen to. It is perhaps a podcast that has a great amount of depth and knowledge. So if you truly enjoy games, Dave's podcast has the meat. And Dave, thanks so much for your art, my friend. Thank you for the richness that you bring all of us gamers into our gaming experience. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words and both of your help in supporting my show too. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Okay, guys, we have, we had mentioned at the beginning that we're going to do our winner of our giveaway. So we're gonna do it right now. And thanks to everybody who has left us a 5-star review. Hopefully this doesn't break my computer. So we're gonna share our screen here.
Let's go for it. Let's do it.
Okay.
I'm really appreciative on those kind words that we got. Also the short little reviews that we received, the 1 or 2 sentences. It means a lot. Yeah, really, really appreciate that we are able to use that algorithm, right, for us to gain a little bit more visibility after year 1. So, Yep, I can see, Marcus, I can see the wheel. Let's do it.
So we've got all our names. Dave is one of them, actually. So good luck, Dave.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, let's spin the wheel.
Ooh.
Congratulations, Kevin's Ainsworth. I know that guy. So
I know
Kevin.
that guy too.
That guy plays a lot of games, so he could probably
does play
use
a lot of
$25 on Steam.
Yes. So
He's
congrats,
probably going to
Kevin.
buy a Trails game.
Probably Trails. So congrats, Kev. I will be reaching out shortly, so you can expect a DM from me. Yeah, and thanks again to everybody who did leave that review. We really do appreciate it. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do here today is just announce our next game, Michael. So
Yes.
this game was recommended by several listeners. I really should start keeping tabs of who's recommending these games, but I know at least a couple people. I think our former guest on the show, Topher, had recommended this game, among others. I think we've had a few people. It's a cozy game where you drive a boat around cleaning up ocean waste. It was developed and published by a solo dev with the name of Lente. And that game is called, Michael?
Spilled.
Spilled. So it's a little cute game where you're driving a little tugboat around, cleaning up. I think it might be, again, the opposite of Arctic Eggs in a lot of respects. Very, very different style game, but yeah, looking forward to this one, Michael.
Yeah, I wonder whether we're going to go to the Antarctica and clean up eggshells from the ocean.
That's right.
Clean up all those beer bottles
The
that
cigarette
spilled down
butts.
into the ocean. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
straight out of the frying pan and into the cleanup boat.
That's
There
right.
you go.
Okay, I guess that's everything for today's episode. Again, thanks again, Dave, for joining us. And I will just say that thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will be back in 2 weeks with Spilled.
Spilled. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.